Good morning, and welcome again to our visitors. In between my sophomore and junior year, I got an opportunity to go to Tibet for 9 weeks. And what I mostly did there is hang out with Tibetans. Can anyone name any Tibetans? I thought you might come up with that. Yeah, the Dalai Lama. And do you know how they figure out who the Dalai Lama is going to be? Yeah, they don't select a Dalai Lama so much as they find the Dalai Lama. We're on Dalai Lama number 14 right now. And he is a reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama. So the 13th Dalai Lama died and then took form again, and monks went out to search for babies born a little after the 13th Dalai Lama died, and recognized, oh yeah, this is the guy again. Now, the Dalai Lama is not the only Lama like that. If you are a high Lama who, who gets to be reborn and recognized like that, that is called a Tulku. And I'm telling you that Tibet is crawling with Tulkus. In fact, I got to travel with one of them. This is Khamtro Rinpoche. And he, like the Dalai Lama, is the reincarnation of the last Khamtro Rinpoche. But Khamtro Rinpoche is not maybe the guy you think he is. He's this guy right here. I can't remember who this one was. He's actually now no longer a monk. When the Chinese invaded, it became very difficult for the Tulkus. So he's now married and an ordinary guy, a lay person, they call him. But he is the reincarnation of a Lama. And traveling with him extensively, I didn't have any trouble believing that. When you go to someplace like Tibet, it becomes very easy to believe these things. And as I said, Tibet is crawling with reincarnations of dead lamas. I saw many, many such. Here's another one. I photoshopped this myself because it was a bad photo and now it's not quite so bad. So maybe you can kind of see, you on the sides can see a little better, that this kid is maybe 4 years old and he's blessing one of my colleagues. In fact, we went up to him with these ceremonial scarves and we bowed to him, and he would take his little hand and put it on our forehead before he would take the ceremonial scarf and put it around our neck, and then we would walk off. And I know that I was in the presence of something special. This was no ordinary 4-year-old kid. I had no problem believing that this was the reincarnation of someone else. And I didn't go to Tibet believing in reincarnation. And it occurs to me that most of you probably don't believe in reincarnation either. In fact, the concept of an afterlife is not something that we in the United States think about, or at least not in San Francisco, think about very much. In fact, there's even a hashtag for this, "You Only Live Once," which Craig Butts talked about last year. The Tibetans don't think that you do only live once. And I wanted to bring this up because the theme for this year's morning meetings is transitions. And the biggest transition, even bigger than going to a new school for high school, the biggest transition is the transition into death. And it's one that we all will go through. And it's one that we will see many, many of our loved ones go through. And it's one that we don't know very much about. Shakespeare calls it the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns. So we don't have a lot of good, hard information about this transition. We have to speak in a lot of mights or mays. So there might be some kind of life after death, maybe here on this world, and maybe in some other one. And maybe there isn't. So as I went through Tibet, what you do in Tibet, there's no word for tourism. The word they use is meet the Dharma. And so we went to these monasteries, one after another, in these very isolated places. And I went to this one monastery, and I noticed that the ground was really hard. And I thought, how do they grow crops here? And I noticed that there wasn't a whole lot of water. And I thought, how do they drink? How did they survive here? And I noticed there wasn't any wood. There's no trees anywhere. I thought, how do they keep warm here? And then I went uphill. They keep the monasteries at the top of hills, to the monastery, and discovered that there was another concern I hadn't thought of. And somebody said, hey, Colin, do you want to go to a sky burial? And I said, sure, I'd love to, because I'd heard about such things in the past. So the next morning, I woke up early, and there was a line of old men in their Tibetan dresses, chupas, and their hats. And they were facing off against a line of maybe 50 vultures. I didn't take any pictures of this, but these are Tibetan vultures over here. And they were saying the universal word for stay away animal, shoo, shoo. And they'd wave their hats at these vultures, and the vultures made little vulture movements. And on the other side of the old men was a pile. And you could see some other old men taking wheelbarrows and adding to the pile. And the pile was a pile of bodies. It was human beings, or former human beings, depending on how you want to think about it, wrapped in cloth. And so you couldn't see any skin, you couldn't see any features, but the shapes of them revealed that they were in fact human beings. And these old men were not relatives, they were acquaintances. And at some signal, the vultures overpowered the old men and went into the pile of bodies. And it was just like a popcorn popper popping vultures. It was astonishing. And in 10 minutes, there were no bodies left. It was just bones. And this is another way you can think about this transition, which is that whether there's an afterlife or not, we live on in the animals that consume us. But there's a third way I wanted to talk to you about considering this transition. I was at a party on Friday, and I happened upon the producer of a music video that I'd been involved with, and I said, "Oh, how is Sam?" Sam was the musician whose video I was in, and they looked at me and they said, "Sam died on Friday. He died today, in fact." And I was not really ready for that, even though I knew that Sam had struggled with cancer. Sam knew that it was likely that she might die soon, which is why she made the music video in the first place. She and her boyfriend decided it was really important to really get her music across in visuals as well as music. And you'll see this idea in museums and on college campuses, and the idea is best expressed in Latin: vita brevis, ars longus. Life is short, but art lasts a long time. And indeed, while I was preparing for this talk, I went and listened to the music video, and there was Sam, singing right in front of me. But there's another way of transition that I want to talk to you about, which is, this is the music video shoot. And actually, thanks to the shortness, I can barely even point Sam out to you. There she is right there. But you'll see a lot of people, and she brought together this community around her through this music video shoot. And I met a bunch of people there who I would never have met. And if you saw me last year, the day after this music video, you saw me in maybe the best mood I've ever been in. I think if I greeted you on this day, I would have been like, "Hello! How are you doing? It's good to see you." I was in a fantastic mood because I met this young woman up here, and I knew she was really special right away. And later on, I asked her out, and she said yes. Thank you. And actually, we're still together, and we're going to Midsummer Night's Dream tonight. Thank you. And there, if you've ever been in a play, you know the kind of intense community that comes together in a play. And it comes together over the work of a guy who died 400 years ago, I think. And this community has lasted, and even though Sam is dead, you know, Marissa and I still know each other, and the people that she brought together still know each other. So when you think about this ultimate transition, I want to give you 4 ways to think about it. And one is that there might be some kind of afterlife. We don't know. And another one is that biologically, our tissues don't just disappear. They get absorbed into something else. And the third is that what we have done lives on after us. And the fourth is that the community that we create, sometimes unintentionally, lives on as well. Thanks very much.